You have always seen things so clearly. How can you not see this now?
Did you think that he was capable of committing such mayhem?
You need to stay away from my wife.
Your daughter is hiding something.
Many law-abiding, high-functioning people have the capacity to snap.
Good afternoon. I'm Ann Hornaday, film critic for the Washington Post. Welcome to Washington Post Live. I am thrilled to be joined by two iconic and award-winning actors, Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant. They are the stars of the hit HBO miniseries The Undoing, and Nicole is also one of the executive producers on the show. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to be here. Glad I made it.
Indeed. It's always a plus when one makes it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really great to see you. And Nicole, I will start with you because The Undoing came right on the heels of Big Little Lies, another binge hit, in which you played Celeste, another well-to-do woman with a very complicated private life. So tell us a little bit about how Grace, your character in The Undoing, differed from Celeste and what they had in common.
I mean, for me, the interior part of Grace is what differentiated. I mean, obviously, they're both holding secrets. One's starting in a place. I mean, Celeste was starting in a place of true damage and trying to present perfection, and Grace is starting in a place of thinking she has perfect life, a very, very good life, and having it unravel. So obviously the place where they start is so different, and then the arc of the unraveling of both of them actually is very different. For me, Grace was incredibly resilient, and her ability to watch, think, and process was probably the hardest part of the character, because so much of the role is the you're never sure what I'm thinking, and that was something that I was like, is this going to actually sustain 6 hours? And I was very worried about it. And that's where I sort of joined hands with Susanna Bier, who is the most magnificent partner in terms of creating a character and understanding how to shape it, and knowing what to do and what to give you and where to lead you. And then having someone like Hugh and these brilliant actors to respond to, because so much of acting is responding and listening and responding.
Well, indeed, and it's, as you say, it's all the more complicated when when you're both playing these submerged layers that are not immediately clear. Hugh, obviously, we know you and love you from your work in the romantic comedies that are now just classics of the form.
All right, we haven't. Hi, Nicole. She gets media.
What?
We like to provide these forums for people to these little reunion forums. It's fun.
Yeah,
But then in recent years, Hugh, you've been playing, you're the bad guy in Paddington, you're the you have a complicated character in Very Ego Scandal, and now your character in The Undoing. So what's been attracting you to these, I don't know if we want to call them villains, but darker roles?
they're pretty bad. I mean, there's one murderer and 2 attempted murderers in those 3 you've just mentioned. So I think you can legitimately call them baddies. I don't know. I mean, this is the stuff I get offered now. I perhaps thankfully don't look or seem like a romantic comedy kind of guy anymore. Or maybe people have rumbled the real me, because I am quite complicated and I do love to kill. So anyway, these are the parts I get often.
Well, and thank goodness for that. Nicole, I'm fascinated by what. Yes, go ahead.
Why do you have your beard? What are you doing now? You look particularly
Yeah, well, that's another complicated character. In the movie version of Dungeons and Dragons. Do you play Dungeons and Dragons, Nicole? Anyone? No.
No.
Well, anyway, it's an extremely
What?
popular game, and it's going to be an extremely popular film with me and my beard.
And do you play
Stay tuned, America.
Dragons,
Yes.
Anne?
Never in my life. I don't think I've even. I don't know what I would. I don't think I'd recognize it if I saw it.
I'm with you.
Where
You're
were
just
we?
being
Where were we?
snobby because it's a bit of it's a slightly geeky game, isn't it?
No,
But
I'm
it's
not being snobby. I would play it if I knew about it. Maybe I'm just absolutely dreadful at any sort of game because I put no time. I'm not a gamer. I put no time in on it.
I
it's not
think
it's not
demographically we
a
just
fine
missed
game.
the gaming
Anyway,
generation.
let's go back to The Undoing or
Sorry.
something else.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, let's
Sorry.
do. I was interested, Nicole, in what you said about Susanna Bier because I know that it was important for you to have a female director for this. You have said that, and I wanted to ask you why that was important for this story, but then also getting back to just sort of having to kind of keep so many things hidden, and how does a director direct that kind of a performance? I mean, what goes into your communication with her? And I guess I would probably put the same question to Hugh because you had a very complicated job to do as well.
The first question with Susanna, it was important to have a woman helming it because it's 6 hours, and I just felt entering into her psyche and the way in which Susanna viewed it and her compassion towards Grace and her understanding of Grace, actually, because she has, she enters it through her own personality in a way, was really, really helpful. On top of that, I'd made a pledge, I think it was about 2 to 3 years prior at the Cannes Film Festival, where I stood up and said, listen, I'm going to pledge, because it's the only way to actually get things to change, is that when you have some sort of position of being able to make choices for who's going to direct something, or at least offer them to people, to try and have women directing, work with a female director every 18 months. And so that was part of my pledge and honoring that. And it was fantastic because it's sort of, was true to my promise, but also completely necessary for the project. So, and I've wanted to work with her for years. As Hugh said, she's done some extraordinary films. And I think, and he'd had a previous relationship with her. And I think we both just, we're really fortunate to be in her hands. She's an incredible leader. And she has such weight and fortitude and strength and vision, which is a terrific thing as a director.
It's what it's like, and taste as well too, I think, comes into it. So
yeah,
Hugh, do you want to add anything? Yeah.
What I would call European taste, because she really does allow things to breathe, and she has a particular way of looking at the world. And I thought that with such a commercial piece and with David's writing was such a wonderful combination, because so much of it is the combination. I always say we're collaborators. That's what we do. If we do it well, we all come in and we bring things and we collaborate.
Yes.
Hugh, what was your relationship with Susanna like on set in terms of just, again, directing this incredibly nuanced and tricky performance?
Well, there's many things I like about Susanna, a lot of which Nicole's just said. I loved her Danish films, and I do think it's a very happy and unusual marriage, this very European sensibility with very American script. And you can see that, and I mean, that you're a film critic, and it goes back to Rosemary's Baby and before. But the other thing that was surprised me about Suzanne, because I had almost made a romantic comedy with her about 10 years ago, was and I didn't know this side of her, was that she's she's quite twisted and dark. So she loved, the darker Jonathan was, the more fascinated she was, which suited me down to the ground. And for instance, you know, in the murder scene, I was actually quite shocked by how far she wanted to go and how gruesome she she wanted to make it. She's Scandi noir.
Which we love, which we love.
Yeah.
Scandi noir is where it's at.
I married one.
Well, nothing wrong with that. I think this is a really good time to play a clip, and this shows your relationship in just such a terrific way. This is Jonathan pleading for Grace's support when he's in jail. Let's take a look and then talk about it.
Look, I don't know what the purpose of this conversation is, but you wanted me to come and I'm
Well,
here.
it's not to convince you that I'm a good husband.
Or a good father. You didn't just do this to me, you did this to your son. You have a daughter. You have a fucking daughter.
Look, I spoke about Eleanor being obsessed with me. Yeah, she was. She was not a well person. Grace, you have to help me. The whole world thinks I did this. My only chance is for people who know me to come forward.
To help you? You actually think I'm gonna help you?
You know my heart. You know my heart. I understand that you can no longer trust me to be the man you thought I was. I get that. But you certainly know that I would never take a human life. You know that.
I don't know anything.
My heart wouldn't allow it. Nor would my ego. You know. I didn't do it. Whatever my faults and my transgressions, my love for you, for Henry. Can you bring him? Please bring him. Please, Grace. He's got to hear from me. He needs that.
Hugh, you, in an interview with the Post, Matt Hurwitz, you said you developed a whole backstory for Jonathan. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I had two backstories, one which I ended up using and one which I was sort of thrown out just before we started shooting, or at least some parts of it were thrown out. Because I've found in recent years that I act better if I'm less like myself, if I'm playing a character. So I created a backstory that involves some. He'd had a whole medical education in Paris. He'd become very interested in French philosophy. He'd be quite pretentious. He was interested in that whole left-wing Parisian 1968 thing. He dressed a bit like that. He had much longer hair, I imagined. He wore sort of more bohemian clothes. And he read much more kind of esoteric, pretentious books. Anyway, Susanna Bier, probably quite rightly, just before we started shooting, said, let's get rid of all that because I think it might make him look too fishy. And the whole thing does fall apart if you can't at least make some of the audience think this guy could be innocent. So so that happened. But a lot of the backstory could still remain. It was, you know, all the stuff of him being a sort of star pupil at school and at medical school, and very kind of too good to be true, in love with his own mythology, but very good at covering it up, like a lot of those narcissists. He could appear quite plausibly humble and charming, but really very, very profound orgy of self-love was going on inside him throughout his life.
Right. And so you're playing a person playing a person, essentially.
But that also is going on. This was a complex matter because, yes, to keep the whodunit credible, although all arrows point at me, circumstantial evidence, etc., I have to appear innocent. And the only way to do that believably, or to bring that off, I thought, was for Jonathan to believe his innocence. And of course, that's something that a lot of sociopathic narcissists do when they lie. They're not really lying. They believe their lies. And I think Jonathan certainly believed his lies. So in that scene that you've just shown, he really believes that he couldn't take a human life. He believes that he's a healer and all those things.
Right.
And
It was.
What's good about that scene is that you also feel it vibrate, and because there isn't that, and I've said this before, there isn't that thing where you go in and what I thought it was going to be was the glass, where you're talking through the glass in the jail and you're on the phone, the scenes that you see regularly in films. This was sitting there with nothing between us. So therefore, to feel the pull of that, of the humanness of him, that was fantastic as an actor, to have that. And therefore, as a woman whose husband is really speaking like this in truth, what she wants to believe and feel, to have those sensations moving and not blocked was what was wonderful. And sitting there and watching Hugh do it, it was completely convincing. And I find that really interesting as a person, where you go, I want to believe this. I want to believe it. As much as there's so many things pointing towards it, I want what I had. So I'm going to choose, even if it's 5%, so that I can believe it and run with that, which we see frequently occur, right?
Which was
Absolutely.
quite the original novel, wasn't it? What was the title of the original novel? Nicole?
She knows. She knew, or what is it? She know. I don't know.
I can't believe we're doing.
No, because with a novel, you have to create the sense of something completely new, because otherwise and we did it with Big Little Lies, you're recreating. So she already knew, yeah.
Should have known.
She should have known.
Yeah.
But I want that title because it gives the whole thing away. But at the same time, it's really, I find it, and I'm so, I can do it, where I will choose to hold on to that one skerrick of what I think is true, because I so want that to be true. And I love that a whole series is based on that, because it's a metaphor for so many things. It's actually not just a show about a marriage, and it for me, it feels like a much bigger landscape that you're playing with. And the idea of the other thing that I loved, Susanna was so committed to Hugh. There was a point where there was like, oh, well, maybe somebody else could have done it. We actually threw that around for a moment, and Susanna was adamant that absolutely not. It has to be him always. You would never change that ending, because if you do, you take away the teeth of the whole piece.
Right. And I think, I know we've been batting different alternative titles around. I think that the novel was You Should Have Known, not She Should Have Known. This is what I'm being told by my cracked
with the title. You wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, you can do it as a book because you're going to get into it and you're going to read it. But to tune in for 6 hours with a title like that, you'd be like, hold on, we already know the ending, but it doesn't work.
Well, and to your point, Nicole, you're so right that this self-belief is obviously a theme in American politics right now, and I would dare say English politics too. That we have this sort of cultural thing going on with lies and mistruths and the extent to which people want to believe. But then this is also as you said, not just about a marriage, but this is about Grace's relationship with her father, with her son. I mean, gender dynamics are running all the way through in such different, fascinating ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as a woman playing with those, with your father, your husband, and your son, and what that means, each of those relationships. I mean, the relationship with Donald is so interesting with my father because, you know, he's really disliked the man that I've married. We had a childhood where he adores me and wants me, and the scene around the piano represents, or even playing chess and all the things that we used to do when I was a child. He's now got back. It very much suits him to have me living in the apartment with my son, and suddenly he's not lonely. He's got me back, so that it suits him. And all of that is fantastic to play with, because I know that as the character. I mean, I know that, and I'm battling that, going, I'm not your daughter, and stop trying to lead me towards leaving him, because he's been doing that the whole relationship anyway. He's never liked him. He never wanted me to marry him. Those things are and then the decision with your son to go, I want to get back. I'm actually, and this is a similar theme to Big Little Lies, I will sacrifice certain things in my life to give you the life that I want you to have, which is a very, you know, deep, complicated thing.
Right. And atavistic
Huh?
thing, really. An you know, primal thing, I think, for a mother and for any parent. And Hugh, you know, those early scenes of you with your son, played so beautifully by Noah Jupe. I mean, he's just an extraordinary young actor. You know, I think it's the word seductive might be wrong, but it's just so disarming because your relationship is so good. You know, when you're walking him to school and joking around about the music teacher, and it's just like Nicole said, we want to believe that that's the real Jonathan. But can you just tell us about how you navigated that relationship with your fictional son?
Well, it comes back to what I said earlier, where I think Suzanne wanted a bit of kind of what one might call vintage Hugh Grant, or, you know, stuff I'd done before. If I could wheel on some of that, you know, sort of charming character, then people might think he can't possibly have done it. And a good way to do that, and a good vehicle for that, apart from scenes with Nicole, in fact, an easier way to do it than scenes with Nicole, were with the boy. And yeah, so he was great to work with. You know, the weird thing about Noah, he plays it American, but he's actually from Manchester in England, and we got on very well with him. And you know, I've just gone through 9 years of bringing up 5 children, so talking to children now comes extremely naturally to me. It's all I bloody do.
Well, you do it quite well. You know, Nicole, I'm sure you don't remember this, but you and I were on the Diane Rehm show here in Washington in 2015 talking about women in Hollywood. It was you, Bruna was on, Melissa Silverstein, and we were sort of talking all about the what needed to change. You had formed Blossom Films, but you were sort of gearing that up. Bruna, of course, who's your co-producer here on The Undoing and was on Big Little Lies, was getting her company started with Reese Witherspoon. And Lord, how 5 years have changed things.
Yeah, I know. And it's fantastic, right? I mean, but it's because of, I think, so many people going, come on, it has to change, right? There's no more discussion about it, or, oh, wouldn't it be nice? But I mean, constantly going, yeah, we can talk about it, but let's actually do it. Let's actually do it, you know, and that is the sort of, I suppose, what I've been committed to, what Bruna's been committed to. Bruna and I have just subsequently worked together again, and when we continue to work together. We're also just starting. I'm about to go to Australia and start a group of an anthology half. You know, it's a big thing to still keep getting it made and making it diverse and being able to see all sorts of cultures and people and ideas. But, you know, part of it is also just these streamers, these huge places going, yeah, we will give you the money to go do it. I'm about to do a thing with Lulu Wang where Amazon is giving us the money to go make a film where she's helming all of it, and it is a very, very bold move. And they've gone, yeah, we'll let you do that. That would not have happened 5 years ago. It just wouldn't. So
it's great.
Really.
Yeah, and
Sorry to cut.
And even in 2015, I'm sorry too. We have a tiny time lag, and I apologize if I'm interrupting. I'm very sorry about that. But as welcome as those resources are and that platform is for this kind of very storytelling that we're talking about, I think those, Nicole, you arrived on the scene with Dead Calm, Hugh, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, those wonderful kind of one-off movies that people would go see in a theater. Is there a space for that kind of movie in this ecosystem now, do you feel? I'd like to hear from both of you quickly on that.
Well, I hope so. I
Yeah.
love this. I think that's where it's really at, and I miss celluloid too. I don't really approve of digital. There's something antiseptic about it, and when you watch a film with an audience, there's something going on. There's a special feeling in the room, and I think we all spend too much time watching screens by ourselves or with our little close bubbles. Enough.
Yeah, and I mean, just the idea of there is certain films that need to be seen on a big screen with a huge group. There's stories that you can sit and snuggle in your bed and watch on your computer or on TV and just sort of, and they work that way. But I mean, just recently I went over to, and that was as part of supporting women, but also supporting auteurs. And being able to say there is still going to be those directors that are going to want to work on those big, big landscapes and tell these stories that warrant being seen on a big screen. And so I went to Belfast, which I think is where you are now, right, Hugh? Are you in Belfast? Yeah. And I worked with Records on this film called The Northman, which is, it's a huge film, but it has to be seen on the big screen. And he shoots at things in one shot. I mean, he is cinema. And I was really frightened to do it. It was during the pandemic. I was like, I remember asking you, Hugh, what's the numbers like over there? And I was deeply frightened. And I went, God, but I'm still going. I'm insane, but I'm also committed, and I hated the idea of letting them down. And so just that thing of, I think now, as much as we're also saying get behind changing, in terms of women and the parity there, it's also get behind the auteurs now and go, yeah, I'll go over to who knows where for some amount of time because I want you to get your movie made. And that's a big thing that we can do as actors.
Well, and may I just say, Nicole, you have made that your working principle for years now, and for that, the cineasts of America and the world are grateful. You've really been fascinating in terms of your choices of material and with whom to work. But with that, I have to say we're out of time.
Well, yeah. I mean, onward, right? We all, we've got so much ahead of us, but it's great that there's this opportunity to go back. And I think also just, I'm so excited to see what people are going to do in the future, particularly, the stories of the auteurs that they're choosing to tell now. because it is its philosophy. As much as there's the big entertainment, we need the art. And I just to do a call out on a series that I'm watching now that's not big screen but is definitely an auteur, is Barry Jenkins' Underground Railroad. I've just been watching that and just sort of shattered. So
Incredible.
yeah.
Well,
Peace.
I wish we had more time. Nicole and Hugh, thank you both so very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Love you.
Yes. Love the Washington Post.
I love the bye, Ann.
The Post loves you both back.
Oh, I just mwah.
And we
Bye.
love our audience. And thank you for joining us. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, guests. Thank you, audience. Please come back to Washington Post Live today at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when my colleague Michelle Yeehee Lee talks with the star of the animated film Raya and the Last Dragon, Kelly Marie Tran. I am Ann Hornaday. As always, thank you for watching.